The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
We do what we like. We do what we could. In the end, it's all good in my Bronx backyard.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Bronx Magazine, where we spotlight the people, places, and the events that make the beautiful Bronx the truly unique place that it is. I'm Derek Woods, outside of Bay Plaza here in Co-op City. Before it was built in the early 1990s, it lay on a rubble-strewn, weed-infested lot. But so many Bronxites remember it as so much more. Once upon a time, it was a magical, magical place called Freedomland.
Now, this may be Indian territory, and it may look like the Old West, but the time is today, and the place is Freedomland, a big entertainment park in the Bronx, in the state of New York, just half an hour by subway from Times Square in New York City.
It was only in existence for 4 years, but its memory truly lives on today. A recent discussion on the amusement park was held at the Pelham Bay Mansion Museum. Led by Thomas X. Casey, the author of Bronx Views and a Freedomland expert, the discussion drew over 150 attendees, proving that indeed, Freedomland can still draw a crowd.
Well, I grew up in Co-op City, and I went to Bronx Science, and I remember telling my volleyball coach that I lived in Co-op City, and she said, "Freedomland? That's where Freedomland is." So when I heard that that we could actually get Tom Casey to come and talk to us about it, I thought, absolutely, absolutely we should have him come. And I didn't realize what a following he has, and that we would have so many people here today. We were bursting at the seams.
Well, the first thing I tell them that is Freedomland was one of the greatest amusement parks that ever existed, and the most important thing about it was it was in the Bronx, right in Bronx, New York City. It was generally where the shopping area is, where Bartow Avenue exit on the New England Thruway exists today, and a bit of the east coast of Freedomland was where some of the other buildings, Ash Loop, which exists today, some of the buildings are right there. That's one of the number one questions. And I guess number two, surprisingly, is everybody's always asking what were the lines to Freedomland. They remember the commercial, "Mommy and Daddy, take my hand, take me out to Freedomland," but they just can't remember the second and third line, which is 50 cents is all you'll pay at Freedomland today. People always forget how inexpensive Freedomland was for a child to get in, 50 cents.
Groundbreaking ceremonies were held in 1959, and less than a year later, Freedomland opened its doors to record crowds and hype. Over 60,000 people, more than twice the number anticipated, came to Freedomland on opening day, with jammed-in customers and long lines forcing the park to stop selling tickets and even close I-95. It was an omen of bad things to come. Covering 85 of a 205-acre lot, at the time it was indeed the world's largest entertainment center, larger than its West Coast rival, a little place called Diisneyland. In fact, one of the planners, C.V. Wood, a Texas designer, had previously worked in the planning, construction, and management of Diisneyland.
Well, first of all, it was an extravagant amusement park. It would cost $65 million. And the entrepreneurs of Freedomland, Ted Rayner, William Zeckendorf, and others, they decided to put in, they spared no expense, and we created an amusement park with entertainment and history. This was quite different from most amusement parks around the country.
The park had a variety of themed areas, each representing a location and era of U.S. history, including Little Old New York, Chicago, the Great Plains, San Francisco, Southwest, New Orleans, and Satellite City. Feature attractions might seem tame by today's standards, but were crowd pleasers back in the day.
Hey, what's happening over there in Chicago? Fire! Look at that! It's the Chicago Fire of 1871. Hurry up, men. We're going to need volunteers for this one. Everybody man the pump. We've got to get water on the fire or the whole city will go. Faster, men. Keep that pump going. Mrs. O'Leary's cow has kicked over a lantern, and the flames are spreading fast.
Well, one of the first things that you come across when you get to Freedomland Heart, you look up in the sky and you see these small, what were called ore buckets going to the Tucson mine. They went from the northeast of the United States, Chicago specifically, down to the southwest. They were 60-foot high cable cars that allowed people to get on the cars out in the open and crisscross the United States. Now, what was very unique about it is that this did not exist anywhere. Now, we had the parachute jump in Coney Island, but you went up and came right down. This one, you went across the United States. It was about a 10-minute trip, and you got a tremendous view of the entire Bronx and the entire amusement park.
Here's Paul Anka. Tell us, Paul, what Freedomland's got. Hey, I can't tell you that in a minute, but come on, Paul, let's go, go, go. Come on out to Freedomland for the greatest time you've ever planned. Fun and thrills go hand in hand at exciting Freedomland.
There was also a big entertainment venue called the Moon Bowl, which attracted some of the top talent of the day, including Chubby Checker, Benny Goodman, Pat Boone, and Xavier Cugat, to name a few. Bobby Darin performed here in '63 in a downpour and collapsed afterwards. Other big names include Lionel Hampton, Count Basie, and even a young Marvin Gaye.
Well, what's important about Freedomland, it was very, very local, and it was larger than Disneyland. And people had an opportunity to either take a bus or a train right in their own backyards and go to Freedomland. And quite a few people took advantage of that. And many, actually I found out, many couples met their spouses or future girlfriends or boyfriends right at Freedomland.
But Freedomland could never really live up to its promise. It started under a black cloud when 6 unfinished buildings were demolished by fire and had to be razed before opening day. A stagecoach overturned and injured 10 people just 6 days after it opened. 2 months later, the front office was robbed of $28,000 by 4 armed men who made their getaway in a boat. And it went downhill from there. By 1964, they had tried everything to stem the decline and mounting debt. But the opening of the World's Fair in Queens was among the many final nails in Freedomland's coffin.
Two big points are the World's Fair. The World's Fair opened in April 1964. Freedomland was already on a tremendous decline by that point in attendance. And the entrepreneurs were trying to salvage Freedomland with more amusement rides. Another theory is a conspiracy theory that William Zeckendorf, who owned the land which Freedomland was built on, had to wait only 5 years until he could build Co-op City. Meaning, if the buildings that were at Freedomland lasted 5 years without sinking into the ground, because Freedomland, that ground, the 85 acres, was on some soft ground, if the buildings could last 5 years, then the city would allow William Zeckendorf to build high-rises, Co-op City. I don't think that's really true as the reason why Freedomland closed in 5 years. The reason was financial. Freedomland was undercapitalized. It was a $65 million project which was mostly financed by bank loans. This was a tremendous debt for Freedomland to carry, and that just doesn't even cover the operating expenses for salary and insurance. From my opinion, as time went on, less people started going to Freedomland. I think it was because of the car. Most young adults who had children, such as I was a 10-year-old at the time, my parents finally bought a car in 1961, a 59 Rambler, and started going many different places over the weekends, which cut down, I'm sure, on Freedomland's attendance. A matter of fact, Freedomland's attendance dropped off on weekends all through their history, and it was much more populated during the week.
On September 14th, 1964, citing competition from the World's Fair, Zeckendorf and partners filed for bankruptcy, and Freedomland was torn down later that year. It had lasted just 5 seasons. But even today, Freedomland lives on in a variety of places. Many of the rides are still in operation in small amusement parks upstate and across the country, including the legendary Tornado and Danny the Dragon. Bronx author Richard Price's best-selling novel bears the name of the park, although used in a fictional location. Freedomland memorabilia trades well on eBay and a variety of sites, including a virtual Freedomland where Rob Friedman gives visitors a virtual tour of the park. In fact, footage of Freedomland sells regularly at the popular expatriate site backinthebronx.com.
It sells very well. I'm startled how many people love the Freedomland and want to see moving pictures of the actual thing. And they're hoping to see maybe themselves there because, it's quite possible they could have been in some of those shots. And it's almost like being back in the Bronx in the 50s and 60s. As you see the movement, you feel you're in there and you can kind of remember it.
But truly the memory of Freedomland burns the brightest in the hearts of the children who walk the lanes of the Bronx's own Magic Kingdom.
Great way to remember the Bronx in the days when those of us that are over 40, as he would say, remember the good old days. And it was a great place. I went there as a kid myself a few times. I was kind of young, so I don't remember everything, but it was a super place, and I'm glad that he's bringing this history to life.
I guess because it doesn't exist anymore, number one. Number two, that it was right here in the Bronx, especially. It was a little difficult to get to unless you had a car.
Well, I think as a Bronxite New Yorker, we are historically a people who enjoy nostalgia. And just going back to the good old days helped me. So I told everyone that I knew to come because I knew they would enjoy it. I mean, obviously, that was just so heart-wrenching for me to just go look at those pictures. I remember that.
Now it's time we got back on solid ground again, back to the Bronx in the state of New York. So long.
The 1964 World's Fair truly was a mixed bag for the Bronx, although it was a great excuse for massive public works projects throughout the New York City area. In fact, this next clip that I found was opening day of an amazing engineering feat that thousands of Bronxites wake up to each and every day.
On this day, January 11, 1961, the new administration building would be dedicated and the new Throgs Neck Bridge across the East River would be open to first traffic. This great bridge will be a vital link in the network of arteries to the fair. On the Bronx Plaza, hundreds gather to celebrate the dedication. Distinguished officials now cut the ceremonial ribbon, and the Throgs Neck Bridge is officially opened. Hundreds of cars form a cavalcade for the trip to Flushing Meadow and the new administration building. First traffic over the bridge. From the bridge, the cavalcade speeds along the new Clearview Expressway, then makes the turn into the Long Island Expressway. Millions of visitors to the fair will travel this identical route.
All right, I'm digging into the archives a lot for these clips, but I know a lot of you will find them very interesting, including myself. So don't go away, we have plenty more Bronx Magazine right after these messages.
So, son, what'd you do in school today?
Well, first I went to spelling, and then that was over. And then study hall, and then that was over, and then it was lunchtime, so I went to lunch, and then I ate it, and then lunchtime.
The less art kids get, the more it shows.
School was over, and now I'm here.
Are yours getting enough?
Sounds like yesterday.
Art. Ask for more.
The Bronx, the borough of 1.4 million people who come from all over the world with an expanse of cultures that enhance New York's all-America city. And BronxNet Community Television is there, informing, educating, enriching, providing your voice, your views, your vision. BronxNet on channels 67, 68, 69, and 70 in the Bronx, or on the web at www.bronxnet.org.
Tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end.
don't need to be bigger than life to be a good dad. You just need to spend time with your kids. It takes a man to be a dad.
It's all good in my Bronx backyard.
Welcome back to Bronx Magazine. I'm Derek Woods. It's pretty chilly out here in the Bronx, so in order to warm you up, I'm going to introduce you to some friends of mine that I made this past summer who are doing their best to keep the waterways around our borough clean. The ongoing renaissance of the interior of our borough over the past 2 decades has been surpassed only by the rehabilitation of its waterways and shorelines. One of the prime examples of that being Pelham Bay Park.
40 years ago, there were 500 acres that were saved from becoming landfill and another garbage dump, and yet this is such pristine land. There's old-growth forest here and terrific wetlands. This is an offshoot of Long Island Sound. We call this area the Lagoon. In '64, this was actually the site of the World's Fair rowing event. And so it had been dredged by Commissioner Moses at the time, and we still use it for boating.
In fact, in conjunction with the Urban Divers, an environmental group working to clean and restore New York's waterways, young and old are seeing the Sound in a whole new way.
What we like to do is we like to celebrate the beauty that's here, and also to get people to have some stewardship about it. What we're doing today is getting people up close with the shoreline. There's a sense of camaraderie. Everybody's pitching in to, 1, pick up the boat and put it in the water, but 2, they'll be paddling together.
The 2 groups sponsor an eco-cruise of the estuary in a very eco-friendly way.
For the past 10 years, we have been basically working as citizen stewards to help clean up New York City waterways. One of our programs is to get people out in the water and to educate them about the significance and the value of these ecosystems and what it takes and what it needs right now to restore them. It's a 32-foot shipping canoe. It's based on the Native American birch canoe. And during the 17th century, Afro-Americans, including the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the English, and also the Native Americans, used this type of canoe to sell fur all up and down the coast.
At nearly 2,800 acres, Pelham Bay Park is an urban refuge for many types of fish, fowl, plants, and animals. But public awareness and involvement is vital in order to preserve it.
You know, Pelham Bay Park is one of the greatest treasures right here in the Bronx, and right here we're looking at some of the most beautiful salt marshes around. There's been a lot of work to restore this type of salt marsh, and of course it requires a lot of people's help to continue this restoration project here, where there's tons of birds and marine life, people can fish and canoe, and our work is about, you know, getting people, providing a new vision for these uses of these waters, getting people excited about the value of that ecosystem and for them to get involved.
It's so gorgeous out here. Who knew this was here?
Row, row,
Row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Stroke, stroke, stroke. No idea what to expect.
I thought we were just going to sit on the boat and take a ride.
Oh no, I was looking forward to actually rowing. I really was. And I had no idea how beautiful it is out here.
Very pleasantly surprised. I figured we'd be rowing, but it's just wonderful. It's great. It looks beautiful. It's a great day. We're great journalists there.
As we do in the day, we hope that we'll capture the imagination about the significance of this water, so when they leave here, they can come back and realize how much of a wonderful treasure exists right here in the Bronx. And they can pass the word on, continue to use it, and most importantly, become new stewards for this environment.
For a complete listing of Pelham Bay Park events, you can log on to www.nyc.gov/parks or call 718-430-1890. And if you'd like to learn more about the Urban Divers, Log on to www.urbandivers.org or call 718-802-9874. Now let's take a look and see what's up on the Bronx bookshelf. Barnes & Noble in Bay Plaza continues its fine efforts in helping new authors. Eva Kalivas will be there on February 24th promoting her new book, I Get Knocked Down, A Woman's Guide to Business and Life. But don't let the title fool you. At under 65 pages, this pocketbook is for everyone who's ever had a bad day at work or second-guessed their career choice. Full of humorous, insightful stories and strategies to get you up again when you've been knocked down.
It was a time that I was out of work. I was interviewing. Things were not going very well, and I did what most people do. I stayed home and I ate a lot. Menage a trois with Ben & Jerry, a lot of Entenmann's cakes, you name it. I was out of work, I was looking for work, and of course I was eating a lot. And I stopped keeping food in the house so that I could not eat, which didn't work because it was a 24-hour mini-mart around the corner from me. So it was about 12:30 at night, and I just did not put, just threw on my coat over my pajamas, ran out of the house, got my cookies, went back home and realized I locked myself out of the house. Great. Sat on the stoop though, ate my cookies, the whole bag, and then had to make the call to my poor sister's house and wake her up so I could go get keys to my house, in shame, in my pajamas, at about 1 o'clock in the morning at this point.
I Get Knocked Down, A Woman's Survival Guide to Business and Life. It's available at your local bookseller and wherever fine books are sold. People en Español magazine launched their 100 Most Influential Hispanics issue this month, and gracing the cover is the Bronx's own Jennifer Lopez. The cover girl makes a big splash in the issue, celebrating Hispanic movers and shakers worldwide in various fields of politics, art, entertainment, and business. And the Bronx is extremely well represented. Among the honorees with Bronx roots, the list is a who's who from the Bronx Walk of Fame, including Sonia Manzano, the award-winning actress, screenwriter, children's author, best known to millions as Maria from Sesame Street. El Maestro, Johnny Pacheco, the legendary founder of the Fania label. Willie Colon, musician, composer, producer, public servant, and worldwide salsa legend. And the always lovely Rita Moreno. We love Lopez, but she still has a ways to go to catch the lovely Latina who turned heads with her star turn in the film and stage classic West Side Story. She's from the Bronx and the first actress to bag an Oscar, an Emmy, a Grammy, and a Tony. And speaking of Walk of Famers, hip-hop pioneers Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five are being inducted into this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. After 2 consecutive snubs, they make history as the first rap act to be inducted into the Hall, going in with such acts as Van Halen and R.E.M. With their groundbreaking hits The Message and White Lines, the group brought rap to a mainstream audience back in the late 1970s.
Let's rock, I contributed to this hip-hop sort of form nobody was doing. Nobody actually thought about taking 2 records and constantly repeating them on time, okay? Doing acrobatics with it, making the phase, rubbing the record.
Pioneers will be inducted in a ceremony to be held on March 12th at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel here in New York City. And speaking of all-stars, the house that Ruth built will have one guaranteed last hurrah. Major League Baseball has awarded the 2008 All-Star Game to New York City to be played in Yankee Stadium. For the first time in over 30 years, we will be the host city for the Midsummer Classic. With the stadium set to be torn down at the end of 2008, it's sure to be the high point of an emotional send-off for the fabled stadium. Unless, of course, the Yankees make it to the Fall Classic that season. With home run contests and a slew of run-up events, the game is expected to generate over $150 million for the city coffers. Well, that's just about going to do it for this edition of the magazine before I freeze my tail off. Now, if there's anything you ever want to see on the magazine, just get in touch with me. You can phone me at 718-960-8132. You can fax me at 718-960-8354, or you can email me at bxmag@bronxnet.org. I'm Derek Woods. Hope to see you next time on Bronx Magazine.
There are thousands of things to see, too many to look at on this trip, but all of them are fun, and all of them will help you appreciate the facts in your history books. This is history brought to life. The history of the country that gave this place its name, Freedomland. Now it's time we got back on solid ground again, back to the Bronx in the state of New York. So long.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.